We welcome you to She Leads the Way, a podcast series by Voluntary Action Network India.
Good morning to all our listeners, and thank you for joining us on our podcast series to get inspired by the journeys of women leaders and learn from their experiences. I'm your host and friend, Dr. Pallavi Rekhi. Our guest today is Miss Mini Bedi, founder, development support team, who has given her all in striving to make this society a better place to live in. She has received multiple international awards, including the Global Ambassador Award by International Association for Community Development for her pathbreaking work all over India, and an award for completing 24 years of working for a fairer world by Ox. Hello, Minji. We welcome you here today.
Good morning, Pallavi, and thank you for having me for this interview. It's a pleasure to share my experiences, and I hope it can motivate young workers like you to do this journey with more rigor and strength.
So, Minji, first and foremost, can you elaborate on your role in the Indian civil society? What do you think is your role in the Indian civil society?
I think I'll take maybe 2 minutes or 1 minute to tell you the background. My family came from Pakistan, and overnight, kind of from multimillionaires, we had come on the street and spent several months in refugee camps in Delhi. And my father had one fear that if he settled anywhere closer to the border, this constant struggle will arise. And that's how, because one of my uncle's mother's brother was in Pune in the army, so we landed up here. Now, Pune, as you know, is the, city which has given birth to several movements. So I was very fortunate to be here. And you got identified as you kind of grew into your 18s and 20s, which movement, which philosophy you follow. Are you working for the city's cleanliness? Are you working for human rights? Is it women's issues, women's rights? And this was, a simple thing. There were no institutions and there were no networks. And fortunately, I saw always that a lot of injustices, physical, emotional, financial were happening to women. And then I think that's where it became my kind of establishing ground that whatever I do in life as I grow up, I must work towards creating equal opportunities for women. And that time, Pallavi, we were so innocent. I thought if I get into the um, administration, then, you have power, you have the government mission and political will. And it was all there when I joined the services. I'm talking in 63. And I was responsible for women and child welfare. It was extremely satisfying work to see that, kids on the streets, when they left, they were looked after, educated women, single women, women-aged household, protection was there. But the mind that I had started questioning again, that you are dealing with those who are identified as the victims or impacted. Are you touching the cause of it? Because there would be hundreds of women outside our age and hundreds of kids and beggars and leprosy patients outside. I think that's where my struggles started, real struggle, that if you really want to address the causes, then you have to get out of the chapori of bureaucracy. Because there I had rules and regulations. I mean, I went to visit institutions where I saw all the registers were empty. At the same time, I knew the women were too busy feeding the kids, so they couldn't fill the attendance register. So I had the choice of either not giving them the grant and depriving the kids of what was their right, or changing the whole system. So I think after 14 years of my experience there, which became a very, very strong, knowledge base for me, how systems work. I resigned and got out, and I was looking for options as to what to do. And I think the civil society provided the space, provided opportunities, and I joined Oxfam for which I worked for 29 years together. And Oxfam then was not the massive Oxfam that you see today across the world. These were, assisting small groups, community-based groups. We were working closely with them and providing little assistance for social action that time. So that's where I got into the civil society, and from there my journey began.
That's really inspiring. So what came in at a time when India altogether was struggling, and you were just relocated. So that's really inspiring. Great. So, what are some of the key global platforms that you have participated in during your journey all these years?
I have actually been very fortunate to attend the Beijing conference, the Kenya conference, and the CSW conferences in New York, and all of which are around women's work and women's policy and, Beijing Plus. Unfortunately, that has slowed down a little bit now. It's happening, but it's very slow.
Platforms are important.
See, if I know that because I was part of Oxfam, the amount of social action, community development work that happens in India, and the kind of leadership, spontaneous, group bante hain and chal padte hain, I mean, look around you, look at all the big, Rajasthan and देखिए, Kosla देख लीजिए, सारे ही रास्ते पे आए ना. जो- But other countries had the money, there was no social action and there were no spaces. And what used to happen is, how do you then, they used to say, how do you then manage to get this? And then I found, यार काम तो हम लोग कर रहे हैं और ये आते हैं क्योंकि इनको थोड़ा सा रिसर्च की स्किल्स थी. हमारे लोग काम करना जानते हैं, लिखते पढ़ते जरा कम है, लिखने में तो बहुत जल्दी आज भी ढीले है. और मेरा ये घर से रोना ही रहा है कि जो करते हो उसको लिखो, लिखते नहीं. तो ये सारा कुछ जो हमारा substance would go there and be published under their names, And that is the time I think somewhere that bug struck me. Yeah, this is not good. You also have to rise from the grassroots.
Right,
And
right.
make your voice, not your own voice, the voice of the work that you're doing, heard internationally and attract people.
Right, right, right. Very true. Even today, जैसे आपने बोला, डॉक्यूमेंटेशन की बहुत कमी है. काम तो हम बहुत करते हैं, बट उसको डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं करते. अगर कोई हमें जी, ये बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है सेक्टर का आज भी. So anyway, so how did you manage to create a space for yourself at the global level?
I think, if you ask me in present context, when I started work, it was extremely difficult, because the women kind of stepping out from 9 to 5 jobs, taking up a traveling job, staying in tribal villages, दूर दुराटे ना फोन थे ना गाड़ियाँ थी ना फ्लाइट्स थे. एंड मिडिल क्लास की औरत निकल के ये सारा कुछ कर रही है. तो उसमें घर में रेजिस्टेंस कई बार आता था. कई बार मैं मदर यूज्ड टू से कि लोग क्या कहेंगे. आई थिंक मम्मा आपको लोगों की क्या पड़ी है, आप अपनी बेटी के ऊपर विश्वास नहीं कि इतना अच्छा मैं काम कर रही हूँ, अब देखो मिलो चलो मेरे साथ, देखो लोग कैसे रह रहे हैं और लोग कितना कदर करते हैं हमारे काम की. I think it was a big struggle. And to get into the Indian head of a funding agency was the first breakthrough. Oxfam UK was existing here much, much, much before us. And they were known as disaster aid. They were not into regular development aid and community development kind of initiatives. Wherever disasters happened, Oxfam used to jump in and provide the aid probably, but they had offices across India when I joined, So I was probably the first woman to head an Oxfam in India.
Oh, wow.
And half my own board was divided, रहेगी नहीं रहेगी, बात जाएगी छोड़ जाएगी, But I told them, I said, don't sign a contract. I'll stay as long as I like, but I'm not going to be a post office that you decide the policies in Australia and I'll carry them out. I am a citizen of my own country. I will take a, review of what is needed there. And with your, consent, we will implement the right kind of things. And I think that's where the gauge see, you know, तगड़े बनने के साथ हमारा पाला पड़ गया है. So it's not going to come down on that. But after that, other options, UK started employing women, but in number of positions. We had program people to head an institution. It came much, much later.
So the important thing is here that who stood up for yourself and who spoke for yourself, who were not dependent on anybody else's voice.
And I had to prove it at all levels. I had to prove it first at my family level. I had children, ensured that, their education and neglect was not there. Then, of course, the community, I didn't care, वो तो किसी को खुश नहीं कर सकते हो आप. But then prove it to the people for whom I was working and with whom I was working. NGOs के सामने जिनको फंडिंग दे रहे हैं, डॉक्यूमेंटेशन तो होता नहीं था, लिखने उन्हें आता नहीं था. कई बार बैठ के जहाँ वहाँ बैठ के ग्रांट के एप्लीकेशन लिखे, when I saw that the work was good. So you had to prove it. But then, if you were in partnership at a very strategic juncture of growth in an agency's life, then it gave them tremendous confidence and they became your strongest supporters. So you have to use your own inner strength.
So, I mean, one was determination. Is there any other skill or any other strategy you feel that, our listeners, our young listeners who aspire to be women leaders one day, they can, work on?
I think networking and sharing of best practices, because our development work doesn't have one ready-made mathematical solution, So the best practices, and networking is so very important in this field, where you meet and you share and you talk. And then, I still remember we had got a group from Himachal and they said, oh, if this change can happen in Pune, why can't it happen in Himachal, See, that's what, and these exchange of best practices and networking used to be a part of the funding projects that Oxfam supported. आजकल मुश्किल क्या हो रहा है कि लोगों के पास ये नेटवर्किंग के लिए और प्रैक्टिस शेयर करने के लिए पैसे नहीं है और सारे लोग तो इसमें माहिर नहीं है ना सोशल मीडिया
जी
इसलिए बहुत आइसोलेशन फील होता है लोगों तो आई थिंक वी हैव टू वर्क टुवर्ड्स इंश्योरिंग कि अगर 4 प्रोग्राम करने तो आप 3 करो and allow that portion to be spent on networking and sharing of best practices. But let people come, talk. The whole self-help movement is on its own now because you created an ideology, you created an institution, you set it up, and now it doesn't need anybody. अगर उनको civil works करना है करो, उनको human rights करना है करो, उनको politics fight करना है करो. But if it had not, that space had not been created, that intervention had not been made, then तो फिर isolation रह जाता है.
Right. So आप कह रहे हो कि self determination या self कोई अपने ऊपर skill building पे काम करे, उसके अलावा organizations also should invest in skill building of their employees.
Absolutely. And encourage, pay for it, and look out for opportunities.
Right.
तो सब मिल जाता था उस टाइम तभी तो सोशल मीडिया और ये सारे गूगल वेबसाइट कहाँ थे मुझे पता चल मैंने आपको बताया आपने किसी और को बताया एंड मिलजुल के जाते थे सारे रहते थे आई मीन लोग attended the Beijing conference, we had the Benazir Bhutto on one side, Ila Ben on the other side, and the president's wife from America there. And this is a civil society gathering. Same ने तो 50 लोगों को लेके गए और अपना खाना पीना लेके गए, कमरे में खिचड़ी पापड़ बनाते थे, खा लेते थे, So it has to be an institutional agenda. And even at all stage, grassroots पे root करो, उनको management पे root करो, unless you get them to the boards,
Right.
the cause is not going to be achieved.
Right.
Even if I am determined, I have the willpower, I have the commitment, but I have to also follow an institutional process.
Right. And there has to be some institutional motivation.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's encouragement and expenditure.
Right. Right. Very true. So, Nini ji, हमने पहले बात करी थी जब आपने बताया that you also had to face a lot of challenges when you had to, convince your family, convince the other people that, what the work that you're doing is really important. तो इसके अलावा आपको क्या लगता है कि what are some of the challenges that you had faced or women today are facing, while they are working in the development sector and they want to achieve something?
I think, it's also now that I have a daughter and a granddaughter and two granddaughters working. One is not working in the development sector, but they are all women. And the challenges are at different levels.
Yes.
See, at our time, thing was कि घर के पुरुष हेल्प नहीं करते थे, बैठे रहते थे सारे. But now what I see is that there is participation, and probably your generation, there is equal participation,
जी.
So that difference is there. But women also, yesterday I was reading Sania Mirza's interview in the paper. You see that you are leaving your children, I'm going to play, She said, no. So, managing the family, family, we are not heading the other way. कि सारे अकेले लड़कियां रहेंगी और काम करेंगी, A balance between work, your personal and this is big challenge के लिए. तो हमने भी वो सब थोड़ा था पहले भी. मैं जिंदगी में दोपहर को सोई नहीं थी, कभी किटी पार्टी में नहीं गई थी, My daughter gives up everything because just now she's in Sweden for an Olympiad. She's taken 4 girls from India who's now mentoring in computers,
Okay.
on there for a week, So I think that the institutional goodwill is a must. And चाहिए चाहे आप corporate से लो, चाहे public domain से खड़ा करो, because we can't be expecting young people. हमारे टाइम में शायद थोड़ी सी सैलरी, थोड़ा सा comfort था. But today, if you are asking hardcore professionals to come into this field, then उनके minimum salary standards है, market rates है, वो तो satisfy करने पड़ेंगे ना.
Very true.
And that if is done, so the opposition or criticism from family community also reduces. मेरे को तो बाद में लोग बोलते थे कि ये शायद फॉरेन एजेंसी में गई क्योंकि सरकारी नौकरी से पैसा ज्यादा मिलेगा. मैंने कहा भैया पैसा कम मिलेगा, सरकारी नौकरी में तो बहुत पैसा था. There was another crowd that said, यार कुछ तो होगा कि ये 15 साल की सिविल सर्विसेज छोड़ के ये थाना बंदी सिविल सोसाइटी में चली गई, कुछ तो होगा, So I kind of challenged a lot of people. I said, देखो आप आके देखो क्या है. So, but when you walked into government departments in Delhi, economic affairs में जा रहे हो या और किसी मिनिस्ट्री में जा रहे हो, you went with the knowledge कि आपको सारा मालूम है systems कैसे work करते हैं. So then the respect that you get from them, that this is not an easy game. जो civil society की दुनिया है, इसमें भी sensible है.
Okay. तो विनी जी, ऐसा कभी हुआ इन योर एक्सपीरियंस पूरे आपके काम में कि कभी आपको लगा हो दैट यू हैव ब्रोकन द ग्लास सीलिंग, आपने कुछ बहुत अचीव किया है जिससे आपको बहुत प्राइड महसूस हुई अपने काम के ऊपर, अपने ऊपर? एनी इंस्टेंस दैट यू कैन रिमेंबर?
पल्लवी, वो ग्लास सीलिंग ऐसे सोच के नहीं की थी, पर मुझे लगता है कि the glass ceiling broke because of the work I did, I for any awards or I didn't go to any conferences to win a plaque there, But I think the substance that I carried with me spoke for me. And the benefits fell into my lap.
So आप कह रहे हो that the work that you did to change the society and for, so that the society can evolve in all aspects, वो ही आपके लिए was
So much shared with you that I am a voracious writer, So मैं तो बहुत बोलती हूँ, बोलना मुझे अच्छा भी लगता है, पर मैं लिखती भी बहुत.
oh wow.
I think that combination brought me the honors that I don't know if I really deserve that.
Definitely without everything, every bit of it energy. So, कोई इम्पोर्टेंट आपने बोला था नेटवर्किंग बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है स्किल की जब हमने बात करी थी तो नेटवर्किंग इंडिविजुअल लेवल पे तो बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है बट हाउ इम्पोर्टेंट यू फील एट एन ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल लेवल और एट एन इंटरनेशनल लेवल नेटवर्किंग और कोलैबोरेशन between organizations, how important is that?
See, I'll tell you because वाणी के नेटवर्क से तो आप बहुत familiar हो. मैं वाणी की मेंबर रह चुकी हूँ, वाणी के बोर्ड में भी काम कर चुकी हूँ. और वाणी के फाउंडिंग प्रोसेस से भी काफी परिचित हूँ. But what I was responsible also as a founder member was Sadhan. Sadhan is a network of microfinance institutions.
Okay.
And हम 4-5 लोग थे एक दिन हैदराबाद में वैसे ही बैठे हुए थे कोई पता नहीं मीटिंग शीटिंग होगी उसके बाद then I said look Elaben this work that we are doing is good, it's helping the poor, it's helping women build their assets by self-help group federation, but there is no legal support for this work. मतलब किसी ने कहा कि ये मनी लेंडिंग है, मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग है, तो अपन क्या करेंगे अगर वो लड़की या औरत 50-60 हजार रुपया एक प्लास्टिक की थैली में लेके स्लम में घूम रही है, हजारों गुंडे हैं, किसी को उड़ गए तो 50 होते हैं, उसने गले में खा जाएंगे और घर के लोग वैसे ही उसको मार देंगे. I think that's what led to us to debate a microfinance institutions का network होना चाहिए. It should be membership based and it should offer capacity building support, policy support, and also talk to the government on regulation. And Pallavi, I'm so fortunate to Hyderabad ki meetings and I ended up as the chair of Sadhan. So worked with Elaben and worked with Muhammad Yunus. So I think that is the value of network.
Right.
Network works. And today you see it is probably one of the most vibrant networks in India or world because that is my feeling.
Right. Most certainly. तो मिनी जी आपने अभी इलाबेन के बारे में बात करी जिनके बारे में ऑब्वियसली हम सब जानते हैं बट शायद हमारे यंग लिसनर्स नहीं जानते हैं तो ऐसी और भी विमेन लीडर्स आपके करियर में रही होंगी जिन्होंने आपके साथ कोलैबोरेट करके काम किया आपको इंस्पायर किया.
प्रेमा पूर्व थे महाराष्ट्र में, ये थी बैस वाले थे, मेरे कुछ टीचर्स थे, इरावती कर्वे वाज एंथ्रोपोलॉजिस्ट
जी
बहुत वर्कर्स विमेन वर्कर्स उस टाइम पे आई एम टॉकिंग ऑफ द 60s and 70s ऐसे नहीं बट दे केम फ्रॉम ऑल सेगमेंट्स
राइट
थे एक्टिविज्म के थे, इलाबेन तो थी और इलेटी जैन जैसे लोग थे उनसे हम मिलते थे बात करते थे ईशर जज थी so there were a handful of people whom we used to meet and मैं तो बैठ जाती थी पल्लवी कि मुझे बताओ कैसे करना ये समझ क्या मिली सोल्यूशन हम खुजा के कुछ ना कुछ सोल्यूशन निकाल जैसे साधन का आपको मैंने बताया ऐसे अगर उस औरत से 50,000 रुपए निकल गए तो उसका तो घर लुट जाएगा शाम को कौन भरेगा. So I think this is where a lot of even men supporters were there. You had I would recognize that,
Right.
Not only women. I mean, majority were women, but there were also men supporters who believed in the civil society.
एंड आपको क्या लगता है कि वैसे हमने इसके बारे में ऑलरेडी बात कर लिया है बट जो सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस है या फिर जो और स्टेक होल्डर्स है वो क्या कर सकते हैं टू प्रमोट वुमेन्स पार्टिसिपेशन एट अ ग्लोबल लेवल एंड देयर पार्टिसिपेशन इन डिसीजन मेकिंग प्रोसेसेस.
See, अभी क्या हुआ था, when we were working in Maharashtra and Western India, I
Right.
think यहाँ थोड़ा सा progressive वैसे भी है लोग, I mean, if you go towards East and UP, Bihar, वहाँ थोड़ा visibility of women participation. तो धीरे धीरे एट एन इंडिविजुअल लेवल आई सेड अगर ये काम औरतें करेंगी तो अच्छा होगा, विलेज लेवल का काम है, you encourage them and then from the community pick up some people,
Hmm.
give them a chance, पढ़े लिखे हैं, घर में बैठे हैं, I mean, once I remember in a remote tribal village, we were doing integrated rural development planning, which organization, I don't know, we were doing that for.
Right.
We went there, there were all men sitting, but there were a few women also sitting, I think World Food Program का project संभाला था पहले.
Right.
And we said, गांव में क्या चाहिए था, and stereotype, irrigation चाहिए, animal husbandry चाहिए, electricity चाहिए, ये चाहिए, वो चाहिए. But nobody talked of water. Nobody talked of health. And there were women sitting in that corner. तो मैंने कहा भाई आपका हो गया हो तो उनसे बात करें. नहीं जी, इनको कुछ आता ही नहीं, इनसे क्या पूछोगे. मैंने बोला पूछ लेते हैं ना, हम सुन भी लेते हैं उनको. नहीं, वो बोलेंगे ही नहीं. This is
Yep.
the kind of things you get to hear. I said नहीं बोलेंगे तो कोई बात नहीं, पूछने तो लगे. And first thing that they said कि हम जब वेल में से पानी ड्रॉ करने जाते हैं, our lives are scared because there is no pulley there. तो हम
Right.
पानी अंदर डालते हैं, हमारे मटके चले जाते हैं. And then the other thing they said कि जब बच्चा बीमार पड़ता है हमें 50 किलोमीटर दूर डायरिया के लिए लेके जाना पड़ता है. तो गाँव में प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर चाहिए. See, this is what you take the messages from them, put
Yep.
them in frameworks and make it a positive issue. And that's how it works because it's evidence based. ना. अब वो
Right.
ऐसे कह रहे थे कि इनको कुछ समझता ही नहीं है, ये बोलेंगे नहीं, नहीं बोलती कि चुप. It also made a difference that a woman was sitting on the dais.
Right.
Probably if a man had gone,
Yeah.
तो सारे प्रोग्राम पीछे ही रह जाते ना.
सही सही कह रहे हो. तो आपकी जो ये 3 डेकेड्स की जर्नी रही है मिनी जी, इसमें आपने क्या कुछ ऐसे लेसन्स हैं जो आपने सीखे हैं जो आप हमारे लिसनर्स के साथ शेयर करना चाहेंगे?
एक सबसे बड़ा लेसन जो सीखा है, जो लेसन को प्रोसेस में डालूंगी, that there is still need to continue doing this work of gender justice and gender equity. Because we have miles to cross,
Right.
in reality. And in women more vocal, standing up for their rights, asserting their rights is also an area that work needs to continue. At 80, I don't want to say that I want to stop it. मैं तो रास्ते पे कोई किसी को गुस्सा कर रहा होता है, मैं वहीं खड़ी हो जाती हूँ. मेरा बेटा बोलता है कि क्या करना है हमको. आई थिंक वो इतना सामान उठा के जा रही है, आदमी मटक मटक जा रहा है, ये क्या है.
Yeah.
So this is an agenda that is ongoing and we have to work at all levels. Grassroots में अभी आप देखो, domestic violence का देखो, violence against women का देखो.
Yeah.
I mean, एक तरफ आपने इनकम जनरेशन कर दिया, उनको जॉब्स मिलवा दी, प्रॉस्पेरिटी कर दी, बट दैट इज फॉर लिमिटेड पीपल. मैं तो कम्युनिटी लेवल तो वो सारा कुछ शायद वैसा ही है ना. So वो work needs to penetrate to the grassroots.
राइट, वेरी ट्रू. तो आज के ज़माने में मिनी जी, पहले जब आपने शुरू किया था काम तब टेक्नोलॉजी इतना ज़्यादा फेस पे नहीं थी, बट आज टेक्नोलॉजी का बहुत ज़्यादा रोल है. सो व्हाट रोल डू यू थिंक टेक्नोलॉजी हैज़ इन एम्पावरिंग वुमेन लीडर्स और एनी लीडर टुडे इन ड्राइविंग सोशल चेंज?
I think if you use technology appropriately, Pallavi, get the right messages, get the right substance. अभी वो तो सारे बहुत curious है, but what is happening that 95 आता है, which is more to create hustle bustle, hype करने के लिए, wrong things, wrong messages, and substance, the real substance gets hidden away. And you have to search. How do you make use of social media to attract masses to read what you write? That एंड टेक्नोलॉजी के सिवाय तो अभी कोई लाइफ नहीं।
राइट, अब तो बहुत ही क्रिटिकली इम्पोर्टेंट हो गया टेक्नोलॉजी।
गलत चीजें लोग पढ़ते हैं और फिर वो मेरी 3-4 मेघ हुआ तो बोलेंगे वहां हमने ऐसा पढ़ा, उन्होंने ऐसा बोला। फिर मैंने बोला तुमने ठीक नहीं पढ़ा, मैं ठहरो मैं तुमको ठीक निकाल के देती हूँ, यू नो। सी हाउ हाउ डू वी, पढ़े लिखे लोग हैं नहीं ग्राउंड लेवल पे, और अगर आपको नेटवर्किंग के इश्यूज उन तक पहुंचाने हैं, यू नो, देन यू हैव टू मेक इट इनटू शॉर्ट स्टोरी फॉर्म्स, यू नो, दैट विल कैच अप व्हाट हैपेंस, यू नो। अगर किसी की लड़की घर वापस आ गई है या उसकी शादी नहीं हो रही, यू नो, is that the end of life, you know, what are the other options that are available, or writing a success story, very very subtle and very short and sweet, you know, in the form of a song, a story, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm not good at that. I can write in black and white, you know. I'm not a media person. But I think using this in the mainstream media भी बहुत ये तो अपना audience हो गया ना, client audience. But if you have to convert, then you have to convert the middle class and the upper middle class.
राइट,
और वो जो mainstream है, चाहे वो लिखे आप पेपरों में लिखो, चाहे you know टेलीविजन लिखो, चाहे यूट्यूब का चैनल यूज करो, जो भी हैंडल्स है आपके वो यूज करो, बट आई थिंक दैट इज गेट अनलेस यू डू दैट। अभी मैं परसों पढ़ रही थी, दत्ता पाटिल जी, उन्होंने अपने प्रोग्राम की रिपोर्ट वाणी के ऊपर डाली है। I mean, I have known Datta for 50 years now, but
Right.
I think we got somebody to do it for them. And the report reads so well, you know,
Right.
it is the boxes, you know, thematically, geographically. It makes sense कि कोई भी पढ़ना चाहे, you know. और सिंपल नरेटिव में लिख देती, हाँ 4 गांव में गए थे, 6 मीटिंग करी, you know, 2 लोग आए, 4 लोग गए. People don't have interest in that now.
right.
So don't anecdotes, you know, and use the good systems to do that. उसके लिए चाहे अपने लोगों को ट्रेनिंग लेनी पड़े, मैं तो you'll be surprised, my grandson and granddaughter teach me how to use the social media. मैंने तो कभी उंगली नहीं रखी, I always had a kind of secretary, you know, and if that टाइम हो के आ जाता था, बाहर जाना, ये लो टिकट लो, होटल का ये लो, जाओ.
They are bridging the gap.
No, they are very keen. Then they come and ask, check, you know, Dadi, did you do this? Did you do this? You know, वो लिख के दे जाते हैं.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So another skill today that is important is digital literacy. ये बहुत important हो गया है आज के दिन. So any last message, anything you would like to say to our listeners?
see, some of us like me have been very fortunate. I count my blessings, you know, कि जो मैंने चाहा वो मैं कर पाई,
जी,
है ना. पर कैसे बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग हैं जो करना चाहते हैं, कर नहीं पाते. उनको सपोर्ट करिएगा, उन्हें ढूंढिएगा, उन्हें सपोर्ट करिएगा. मेरे से जो बन पाएगा मैं, बिकॉज दिल की चाह सबकी है दुनिया बदलने के लिए.
Thank you.
You know, that's the difference in animals and human beings. हम चाहते हैं कि सारे सुखी रहें, सारे अच्छी तरह से रहें, but not everybody is blessed to be in a civil society, to be in a leader's position, to be able to change the world. But let's help them, you know, let's locate them and help.
So thank you so much मिनी जी, आज हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए और अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस शेयर करने के लिए, हमें इंस्पायर करने के लिए. Thank you so much. I'm sure our listeners will also be inspired after you know, listening to your talk today. So thank you so much, Mini ji, and thank you so much to our listeners for being with us today. Bye-bye and take
Thank
care.
you so much. Thank you, Vani, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mini ji.